Is it still not wanting to start?
No, it should be working.
All right, let me take a check. And I guess with Chris having wandered off, we'll at least wait to get started until he gets back.
Why?
Fair enough.
Although I can't see the speaker.
Oh, where do I need to be?
More towards the screen.
I have stage fright. I like to hide.
Wait, our stream is showing the meetup upstairs.
Yeah, that's not the right one.
Okay.
Yours is on here.
Okay, let me look. Where are we? Austin Live. Let me look. Okay.
That's y'all. There you are.
Okay.
I just need to update the title. of
Okay,
the other
you'll
one.
fix the title.
Yeah, I'll fix the title.
Okay, cool. All right. No,
Yeah.
you're good. That's pretty readable, pretty good. I'm going to slightly move that screen because it's slightly blocking the edge of your
Well,
screen.
okay.
Sure.
I'm gonna go sit at the desk if y'all need anything.
Well, I know we need at least one parking validation for him.
Okay,
Here
do you want it
as
now?
well.
Sure, I'll take it down before
Yeah.
it might disappear.
All right. Let me.
Hello.
People are coming.
Sweet.
Yes.
Oh, what do you know? I knew my waiting to get started would be a good idea.
Yes, put the credit card in, and then it'll tell you to pay, and then don't pay,
Thank
scan.
you, scan that. Thank you.
Hello, here for the EFF Austin meetup.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll get started in just a couple secs. It's taking people a bit to roll in, so I'm just gonna give a little more time for people to roll in.
Do you want this now?
I know, if
so
you've
much.
never been here before, it can be a little confusing.
Yeah, I was like, hey, where do I go? And he's like, oh yeah, it's probably on the 16th floor.
Well, we used to be on the 64. I was even just joking that whether we have it here or on the 16th, somebody won't be able to find it. I can't.
Yeah, I saw a meeting up there. I was like, okay, it's EFF.
No. Yeah, I know we have at least one other person who's here. I think he went to the restroom, so we're at least going to wait for him to get back before we get started. And anybody watching online, we're just giving a few more minutes for people to trickle in, and we'll get going.
The mic is here.
Oh, what do
It
you
picks
know?
you up anywhere.
Well, there it is.
It picks you up anywhere.
I know. I actually never noticed that they might before that they had it hanging there. I think that might be new, actually. I don't recall them hanging it there.
No, it's been there for a while.
Oh, maybe just
A
didn't
couple
notice
months
it.
at least.
Okay.
Although I will say I didn't notice before there's only one.
Uh,
For some reason I thought there were at least two.
I do know for a while people were complaining about the audio, but that complaint seems to have gone down, so maybe they got this room's audio
Oh, okay.
fixed.
Maybe it is new then. I know it's been there for at least a couple months. So the closest one I know of is you have to go back out to the lobby and go across from the
Go
elevators.
that way.
Yeah. I don't think there's much
You'll
going
be
on.
on your right as you head
They're cleaning the floors.
All right.
other rooms.
Well-
The hallway, yeah, you'll see it. It's a
Oh,
pretty
they're
sign.
cleaning.
We'll wait for you to get back before we get started.
That's where I know where it is.
Let's see. Yeah, and there aren't a ton of people like watching the live stream right now, so I don't think we're making people furious.
I mean, I can start telling terrible puns.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Oh gosh, now you put me on the spot.
No. Let's see. No.
Let's see.
Yeah, but they have to be like, they got to be crypto culture puns.
Yes, I can.
Oh, I don't know any crypto puns.
I don't really either. All right. Okay, they fixed their title. That's good.
Cool.
So there will not be somebody watching the wrong one. Very good.
Sweet.
All right, and from what I can tell, all the online portals are good. Nobody is yelling at me, blaming me for everything wrong in the world.
I can start if you don't mind.
Well, I know, and in fairness, I probably am guilty of plenty of things you can choose to rag on me about. All right, I think, yeah. All right, I think we're looking pretty okay here. Very cool. All right, so yeah, we'll just wait for her to get back from the bathroom, and then we'll go ahead and get going. If anybody else trickles in, hooray. But we have definitely cleared that. It was so important, at least 5 people thresholds.
All right.
Mad at me for having meetups here.
Cool.
Yeah, David is not going to be able to live tweet us tonight. He's still stuck at work.
Been there a lot.
Yeah.
Will this be recorded? We can play back later?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take the live stream and probably clean up the audio a little bit. maybe
Yeah,
add some
because
slides.
he was gonna, he normally does our videography, but he's also our speaker. He was prepared to do both, but they weren't, it wasn't like in his Linux adapter, so he's having to use Windows for his slides.
All right.
Which is usually what I use for recording, so.
Because I told a couple of people about this, but I don't.
Well, let me also, I know there's been issues recently where.
I also got a whole website I'll talk about, so
Yeah.
send them there.
Yeah, no, he has a really phenomenal website. I would
Thank
frankly
you.
just send them there.
These are very technically challenged people.
Hey man, I answer all questions as long as you don't start the email with yo homeboy.
No, we simultaneously are willing to dive really deep into the technical weeds. We've certainly had really deep dive cryptography meetups, but at the same time, even those, we try to keep them accessible. It is not to be gatekept. You're to actually learn how this stuff works.
Yeah.
You know, people can go to Austin Hackers Anonymous if they want to be dunked on for not knowing obscure cryptographic stuff.
Haven't heard of that one, but I'll take your word for it.
If you've heard of that.
Don't think so.
They're kind of.
I've heard of the band.
No, AHA, Austin Hackers Anonymous. They're kind of, I can't figure out if they're white, gray, or black hat hackers, but they're definitely like hackers.
Okay.
I went to a DEF CON 512 meetup
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
like last week.
Yeah.
I didn't know we had a local chapter. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're really good. It was a pretty good turnout.
I did a live stream for the, I think 302 up in like Pennsylvania or something with, I have a podcast, my co-host was there, and Matthew Garuglia from EFF.
Oh, nice.
It was a round table with all three of us.
Nice.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Had a good time.
And I know we've had other groups, like, you know, I know we had a 2600 meetup group, but
Oh, that's awesome.
I don't know if they're still going. I mean, I lost touch with so many things during
Sure.
the COVID sphere, so, you know, what exists and still doesn't can be vague.
Right. Yeah.
All right, let's see. Do I got anybody being on the live stream of like, what's going on? Okay, well, there's a few people watching now, so I will just say, hey, people in internet land, we're waiting for somebody to get back from the restroom, and then we will get started shortly, so hang tight.
Kind of a small crowd today, so.
Yeah, normally I wouldn't wait, but it feels
Yeah.
rude in this context.
Yeah, but it's like 20% of the audience.
I know. Well, we have another at least 3 people watching online, so that always boosts the numbers a bit. Although, some of them may just left. Okay. All right, we will go ahead and kick this sucker off, and whoever else shows up, shows up. All righty. I will get here. Yes, everything's good. All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the latest monthly iteration of the EFF Austin Meetup. Old faces and new. To those of you who are new, welcome. To those of you who are old, welcome back. So for those of you who are new, my name is Kevin Welch. I'm the current president of the board at EFF Austin. If you've never heard of EFF Austin, you're like, what is EFF Austin? Well, you might have gathered from the name, we're an Austin-based digital civil liberties organization. We partner and closely affiliate with Electronic Frontier Foundation, who is based out of San Francisco. That's what EFF stands for. Electronic Frontier Foundation is the nation's oldest and largest digital civil liberties advocacy group. You can kind of think of them as the ACLU for the internet. They try to protect your rights in emerging technological spaces, especially your First and Fourth Amendment rights. They do all sorts of cool work, like protect things like net neutrality, end-to-end encryption, Section 230 of the CDA, which is what allows social media websites to function, and all sorts of stuff that tries to protect your freedom to express yourself and be private and anonymous online and other emerging technologies. And that's really just scratching the surface of everything they do. A lot of really smart lawyers and technologists working and fighting to attack shitty laws and respect people's rights wherever they find them. So yeah, we've been around almost as long as them. We are, like them, about 30 years old. We are the oldest member of what's known as the EFA, or the Electronic Frontier Alliance. That is a kind of peer-to-peer affiliate group of activist groups all over the country. There's about 100 of them scattered all over the United States. If you're not based in Austin, there might be one near you. So you should look into the Electronic Frontier Alliance if you want to learn how to get involved in your area. Though interestingly enough, while there are about 100 EFA groups, not only is EFF Austin the only one currently in Austin, we are actually the only one currently in Texas. So big area, a lot of ground to cover. So certainly if you are from another Texas city and want to get one going, we could certainly use the help, because there's plenty of chicanery at not just the local but the state level on digital civil liberties issues. In fact, the Ledge is in session right now, and I encourage you to speak with me after the talk if you'd like to know what BS they're up to, because it's definitely a lot, and the truth is I have not had the bandwidth to do too much rabble-rousing about it, but I certainly can tell you what is going on if you would like to learn some of the BS they are getting up to. What I can tell you a little more about, where if you are Austin-based and would like to get involved politically, there is some stuff going on at the local level right now where you actually could help a lot, which is, I believe it's going to be two Thursdays from this Thursday. I can get you the exact date. Basically, there's going to be an item, and I won't know the number yet, at the Thursday City Council meeting, where they're basically going to be considering a line item relating to a technology request of upgrading dash cams, Axon dash cams in Austin Police Department's cars. This is actually a back door into massively expanding the number of automated license plate readers that the Austin Police Department has. There's been a big ongoing fight about automated license plate reader deployment in the city that EFF Austin's been involved in rabble-rousing about. We're not exactly happy that they're trying to pull a fast one here. There's several city council members who are definitely on our side. I'd say at least 4 of them definitely at this point. But definitely, if you can email or call your city council member and express your opinion, or even when that item becomes available, sign up to speak at that city council meeting. Certainly more people saying this is not cool, that the current program is under a 1-year trial, and it's really kind of disingenuous to massively expand the scope of it when there's been very little citizen input and feedback. Yeah, reach out to your council member and tell them you're not happy about this. Specifically, council members, if any of you are in District 5, it'd be very valuable to speak to Ryan Alter about this. If you're in District 8, it would be very valuable to speak to Paige Ellis about this. There are other people who I think we're less likely to get them on our side. I'd say they're the 2 highest value ones to target, I would think. Waji, also, if you're in District 3, Jose Velasquez would be somebody good to talk to as well. So anyway, that's a bit about what we've been up to politically. But yes, to get back to EFF Austin, we mostly educate. We have these monthly meetups here. They are the second Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. currently. Next month, I do not entirely know what the topic is. Originally, I was actually going to be talking about automated license plate readers, but my startup scheduled our yearly retreat on the same date, so I'm going to arrive late for that meetup. Our good friend Daniel Rossler, who always gives us wonderfully nerdy talks about things like how CertBot works or how election barcodes are encoded on your ballot. He's going to give us a talk on something cool. I don't know what yet. Also in June, we're going to be hearing from Dr. Sharon Strover at UT Austin. She's been doing a big study about citizen attitudes toward smart cities and privacy. Specifically, EFF Austin helped her with some focus groups on her research. She's going to be coming to speak to us about the results of her research, about actually how citizens feel about our cities becoming increasingly watch spaces. I may learn that people don't actually agree with us entirely on this topic, but it's good to know where we stand. So I would recommend coming to that. And yeah, so we do the education, we do the political activism, we even occasionally throw cyberpunk parties when I can convince some tech millionaire to give us money. Hasn't happened in a little while, but if you know one, let me know. So yeah, that's a little rundown of what we got going on. Let's see, anything else I have not mentioned that I need to mention before I turn it over to our speaker? I guess I'll also just say if anybody in the room would like to share an announcement that they think is relevant to the community, you're happy to do so. Shameless self-promotion is totally allowed as long as it is somehow relevant to EFF Austin and our interests. But if not, I think I'm going to go ahead in a sec here and turn things over to our speaker. So our speaker this month here is Nate. Nate does a lot of cool stuff, but I know that Nate also very much values his privacy. So I will not do the normal bio thing I do just in case I say something he doesn't want getting onto the interwebs. What I will just say is he runs a really awesome website that has all sorts of awesome stuff about privacy. It's an invaluable resource, especially if you are not the most technically savvy and trying to wade your toes into this stuff. I'll let him talk more about that. But specifically, Nate suggested, it might be good to do kind of sort of a crypto party-esque meetup, where we actually talk about basic security and privacy concepts, anything related to cryptography on the internet, such that you can better protect your privacy and security online. And I was like, that sounds great, we're here to educate. It's been a while since we did something like that. So basically, Nate's going to give us a little talk about passwords, that little thing that prevents you from getting hacked online. And as if you read any news stories like I do, it turns out that, and this is not necessarily through the fault of anybody, because I'm not going to claim getting passwords right is easy, but most people aren't very good at passwords and they get hacked a lot. So Nate's going to be trying to give us some accessible tips for how you can up your password game. What makes for a weak versus strong password? What are these things like password managers you've been hearing about? And how can they hopefully make your account getting compromised such that you have to make a Facebook post telling everyone, sorry, I got hacked? Hopefully can tell you some tips where that might not happen so much anymore. So without further ado, take it away, Nate.
Thank you. Alrighty. Hello, everyone. So like Kevin said, I go by many names, but tonight I'm going to be going by Nate. I am the founder and editor of a website called The New Oil, which I will talk about in a minute. I was in the military, so this format is like burned into my brain, but I personally found this really helpful. I like to lay out learning objectives, what I hope to teach you guys today, so you can tell me if I failed and missed anything. So of course, the first thing is what makes a strong password, why that makes a strong password, or why it even matters. Probably should have included some stats when I heard you doing that intro, but I didn't. I'm going to talk about the recommended password managers that, I recommend, and help getting started. If anybody wants to do that, or if not, that's totally fine. I don't want to put anybody on the spot.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, he will also, part of, this talk's not going to be that long. Part of this is, if you have your phone or computer with you, Nate will help you get started.
Yeah, so that's kind of the structure today. Again, military, it's called the informal lecture method, which basically just means interrupt me if you have a question. And it's going to be real short, and that's so that we can leave time to actually go over this stuff in more depth if you guys want to. Again, totally optional. I don't want to put people on the spot. But so a little bit about me, because the first question is always, why should I listen to this person talking? And what are my credentials and expertise? To which the answer is, half jokingly, none. I am not formally trained in, I don't have a degree in cybersecurity or anything like that. But I've been really into this stuff since about 2017, and I am really obsessed with the privacy and security. I've put in thousands of hours since then into reading headlines, online discussions, trying my best to understand things. There's a lot. I still have a long way to go. So about the New Oil, I founded that in about 2018, and originally, so I wrote the goal was making data privacy and cybersecurity accessible to the average person. Honestly, the original goal was to make a short list, kind of like a get started toolkit, use this browser, use this password manager, use Signal. And then lockdown hit, and I was like, well, I got all this free time, so I completely rewrote it from the ground up. Because I ended up sharing it with a lot of people who were also asking really basic questions in the sense of how do I even get started? And I found out a lot of people really liked it, so I'm like, cool, I'm just going to nuke this and start over. And I now have more than 15,000 visitors every month, and across the various social medias, almost 20,000 followers. So,
congratulations.
Thank you. It's, in the grand scheme of things, it's not much, but I think it's pretty cool.
Also, if you don't mind, I forgot, I was going to say this real quick, and this is the brief point where I give a disclaimer. EFF Austin is giving you the best advice we are able, but you should never use a single source to plan your entire threat model, especially if your life may depend on it. So consult with many experts, not just us. We cannot guarantee everything we tell you is 100% correct or secure.
Yeah, this is definitely aimed at a very basic, applicable to most people level. If you are Edward Snowden, I cannot help you. So I wanted to start on why we even use passwords. And Because honestly, passwords aren't that great, really. But they're kind of a hangover or a holdover from a simpler time when there were not millions of people on the internet. So passwords are basically meant to be a form of authentication. And you guys may know some of this stuff. There's multiple forms of authentication. That's why there's a such thing as two-factor, which is a different topic. But there's fingerprints, face scan. Those are really popular nowadays. There's a little two-factor code, things like that. Passwords are kind of the original form of authentication. You have a username and a password, and that's something you know. And in order to understand why strong passwords matter, we have to start with kind of the technology behind it. I don't know a whole lot, to be honest with you, when it comes to the technical level, so this should be, I hope, relatively easy to grasp. Passwords are stored in what's called hashes, which are a one-way encryption. So when you go to log into a website, say Facebook, your password, if they're doing it right, should never be sent to Facebook as your password. Instead, on the browser or the app or whatever, they do a one-way encryption called a hash. And, just to drive the point home, so this is using a hashing algorithm. I know it starts off kind of similar, but the important thing to note is the only difference between the two is this little hyphen. And if you look towards the back end, it completely changes the hash. So even just one little thing can make a completely different hash. So that's what gets sent. And then all they do is they compare it to the hash they have on file, and if it matches, cool, you're authenticated. If it doesn't, try again. So that's kind of why strong passwords, in a nutshell, that's why strong passwords matter. It's also worth noting there's a lot of hashing algorithms out there. The one I just used was, I believe, MD5, which is not great.
It's kind of the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, pretty much. Nowadays, I think bcrypt is kind of the golden standard. I think SHA-3 is also acceptable. Anyways, kind of technical stuff. But yeah, not all of them are the same. Technology is constantly advancing. We're learning new things. Things that used to be secure 10, 20 years ago are not necessarily secure today. I think this thing is dying. There we go. It's also important to note, cyber criminals don't typically target individuals unless they have a reason to. For most of us, we're probably not going to be individually targeted. And I think this is where a lot of people have misconceptions. When we're worried about somebody stealing our identity or hacking us, nobody, generally speaking, again, nobody sits there and goes, oh, let me stalk John Smith's Facebook account and break into his thing. What they do is they are trying to target big companies like Amazon or, again, Facebook, Google, anybody like that. And these guys get attacked literally millions of times a day. And most of it's bots, most of it's automated crap that was never going to work from the get-go. But if the attacker gets lucky, and they only need to get lucky once,
It's asymmetric warfare.
Yep. They will gain access. And depending on what they gain access to, most of the time they just take everything they can and sort it out later. Because they don't know when they're going to get caught, when that access is going to get revoked, never if it's Facebook. But yeah, they just take everything and figure it out later. And that could include hashes of passwords. I think I got a little ahead of myself. So yeah, once they get hashed passwords, there is software. It is free. It is legal. It does not require a very powerful computer. And they can just start putting all of these passwords or these hashes in there, and it'll start trying to crack them. So like I said, free, widely available. It's also worth noting the reason that they tell you not to reuse passwords and use common passwords. This stuff can guess common passwords. Let me see what my notes here are. Yeah, actually, that's my next point. There's generally speaking, there's two kinds of ways to go about this. There's dictionary attacks and brute force attacks. And dictionary attacks are the ones they're going to start with. And that's the one where they go out and find, you guys have probably seen these. You've seen articles that go around of these are the most common passwords this year. They'll take those kind of lists, load them into the software, and that's the first thing it's going to check for. And then if that doesn't work, they will probably go over, if they don't get enough passwords, they'll probably go over to brute forcing. But even then, brute forcing is the one that takes longer because that's where they literally guess every single combination. So they'll tell it any password between 6 and 12 characters, including numbers, letters, etc. Yes, sir?
Okay, but the brute force attack has a lot of permutations and iterations.
Mm-hmm.
Why doesn't the login process or the authentication process catch that type of activity?
Because this is after they've already downloaded it from breaching a website.
All right, so it's offline, right?
Yep.
Okay, I got you.
They just got a whole list of them in a text file or whatever.
And they're literally what they're doing when they're forcing is they're going through every permutation, putting it through the hashing algorithm and see if it matches one of the hashes they have. They're not trying to log into the website and go that time.
In fact, most of the time, so I didn't put this in the slide, but most of the time what they do with this information is they turn around and sell it on other websites. Because if one person is, first of all, it's too much risk for them. You know, if one person is going in there and logging in all these accounts, but if they can post online, you know, hey, I've got 500,000 Facebook accounts or 500,000 Bank of America accounts. So that's especially useful if they get email addresses, personally identifiable information, social security numbers, phone numbers, things like that. So 99% of the time, the person who actually gets the credentials and logs in is not the same person who stole them.
This is the stuff that usually gets reported in Have I Been Pawned?
Have I been pwned? Yep. Which for anyone who doesn't know, I should have taken a picture of that. That's a good one. Have I been pwned? I think it's all one word, have I been, pwned.com.
Yes.
It is a collection of basically every known data breach out there. You can put in your email or your password. It does not save your password, and it'll tell you if it shows up in a data breach and where at.
And the answer is, even if it's a pretty secure password, if it's from a website you've not changed the password in a long time, probably it's in there.
Yep. I was actually really surprised. I put in my password I was using since high school before I got into privacy, and surprisingly was not in there. My email address is in like 12 different data breaches, but yeah. So yeah, the important thing when it comes to strong passwords, it's important to remember dictionary attacks and brute force attacks. Brute force attacks, again, they just give it the parameters and the machine just goes. And again, I really want to emphasize, does not take a very powerful computer. I bought this at Best Buy, and it can definitely do millions of guesses a second. So, and it's not even that powerful. It's pretty good.
And
Video
when you
process.
remember that there's only 1 million words in the English dictionary, give or take, do the math.
Right.
And if you have a GPU, it's even faster.
Yeah, GPUs really speed up the process, so if they have a good graphics card, which again, gaming laptop, really not a good graphics card, but could be better.
I'll also point out, that the brute force part, there's optimizations you can use to make it smarter and faster, which is why you might not be very safe if you took a normal dictionary word and did a little bit of wheat speak alteration to it, because a smart brute forcer will combine a dictionary attack with wheat speak modifications.
Permutations. So like Chicago with a 4 instead of an A, it's going to look for stuff like that. So, yeah. And I had a train of thought derailed. But, oh, yes. So kind of going back to the beginning where I said not all hashes are equal, that's why it's a bad idea to reuse passwords, because some people are, and oh my God. So as part of my work with The New Oil, I co-host a weekly current events podcast, and we have a whole section dedicated to data breaches, because that's how unfortunately common these are. That every single week we have multiple to talk about. I think I've been doing this for like 3 years now, and there's 2 weeks we haven't had any data breaches. Was that?
That we know of.
Correct, we probably miss a lot of them. Those are just the ones we know of. We see a lot of them, way too many in the year of our Lord 2023, where they're using like SHA-1, which again is stopped being recommended like what, 15 years ago? Or something like that?
I think it went out around the same time SSL1 went out, basically.
Yeah, so forever ago. MD5, which was the one I showed you that's not good. Just a couple weeks ago, there was a website that has yet to own up to their data breach that is accused of storing passwords in plain text, so not even hashed, in 2023, with children's data.
And that right there is another key of why do not reuse the password, because somebody may be hashing it poorly. So
Yeah.
it may be a great password, but if you used it on a service that didn't secure it properly.
Yep. Credential stuffing, not to get too far off topic, but these are the things I should have included in the slides. Credential stuffing is an incredibly common form of account compromise, which is basically where people reuse the same passwords. So if your Amazon gets hacked and that password gets out there, they'll just go to every other common website out there and try those credentials. They'll go to Facebook, they'll go to Google, because they know that most people reuse passwords. So, yeah. Okay, so now that we've emphasized how important strong passwords are, the question becomes, I'm going to tell my wife to stop using this thing to play with the cats. It has a laser pointer. She loves to do that.
Use it for the dog.
Exactly. What makes a strong password? So generally speaking, length is the most important factor, because again, it goes back to that brute forcing thing. The longer a password is, the longer it's going to take them to brute force it. You know, a 4-character password is not going to last nearly as long as 16, 20, 25. Depending on who you ask, there's different recommendations. I think it's NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, I think says as low as 8, which I take a lot of issue with.
I assume they're including upper lowercase numbers, special characters. when
Even
they're saying
still, I take a lot of issue with that one.
Yeah, that.
It might be someone else, but somebody says 8, somebody else says 12, which I think is a good minimum. I'm a fan of 16 or more, which I know sounds unrealistic, and we'll get to that. Come on. There we go. Complexity helps. So again, there's a lot of debate about this in the privacy community. Does it actually have to be uppercase, lowercase, etc.? Yes, sir.
Password generators, or the password standards for what a site will accept are not uniform across the sites.
They're not.
When you have a password generator, it can adapt, usually, that's my experience.
The ones I recommend can.
Yeah, I will say the one I use, absolutely, when I run into a site that my normal strategy doesn't work, it can adopt other strategies.
So yeah, the ones I'm going to recommend at the end, it actually, I've noticed this, it will remember your settings per website even. So let's say my usual, because I believe in overkill, my usual is like 25 plus.
Right.
If I'm on a website that limits me to say like 12, then I can tell it, okay, bump it down to 12. And then I've noticed that if I, for some reason, have to change my password on that website, when I go to generate a new one, it'll remember, hey, this one's 12.
Well, it's usually the other characters that you would combine.
Yeah, I've run into that too.
That's the problem I have. I use the Apple keychain usually.
Mhm.
And it doesn't.
That one's not too bad. I didn't include it here, but yeah, that one's pretty cool.
It is rejected a lot.
I will always say the one I use, is KeyPass, which is one of the ones he's going to talk about, though I think Nate's
Yeah.
personally a BitWord fan. But
No, I use KeyPass.
But I use KeyPass.
I use them
I'll
both.
always say KeyPass. The generator's pretty robust. Like, I can give it all sorts of rules of can and can't include these
If I
variables.
can copy
Yes.
and paste the rules into the generator, I would feel.
You're thinking a
Yeah.
lot of these not very secured websites.
Yeah, so I was actually going to say on that note, and obviously there's nothing you can do about this because sometimes you just have no choice. Like, my doctor does this, and I'm pissed about it. There is no technological reason nowadays for a website to be limiting your password in any way, shape, or form. That is a huge red flag right there, that they are not taking your privacy and security seriously whatsoever. Especially, I just learned this one recently, especially if they say it cannot start with a special character, that probably means they're vulnerable to script injection, which should have been fixed 15 years ago. So, yeah. Unfortunately, though, some of the websites you can't just like, all right, cool, not going to use you. Like, you have to. There's really nothing you can do about that. But,
And my aside, because I'll just complain about dumb corporate policies, because I've been subjected to a few of them. Any company who's doing you must change your password every 6 months while having the arbitrary rules,
Mhm.
garbage. All people do is increment the number at the
Yep.
end of the password.
that's no longer recommended advice either. Although we have to do that in my day job. So, yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes you just have no choice but to play ball. Not to turn this into a rant fest, but no, my favorite one is when they don't tell you there's limitations on the password.
Oh,
So
yeah.
then I sign up, and then next time I go to sign in, it doesn't work, and when I contact support, they're like, oh yeah, your password can only be 14 characters. I'm like,
Somebody
thanks for
failed.
letting me know.
Front end team failed form validation.
Yeah, right, no kidding. Yeah, it's wonderful. So yeah, complexity helps. It's, again, the length is really the more important part here. I'm a big fan of complexity because most websites nowadays are going to require you to add special character, uppercase, lowercase, whatever. It's easier just to set the password manager to say, yeah, include all of it. Again, we talked about never reusing passwords. Credential stuffing is insanely common. There was, God, who was it? There was a big data breach recently that was a result of credential stuffing. There's so many of them, I could probably just name one at random and it'll be that one. But yeah, credential stuffing is a big thing, so try to never reuse passwords. And then, going back to the whole dictionary attack thing, try to avoid common words, phrases, substitutions. So even if it's a really long phrase, like, for the record, I've never seen the show and I know that makes me a heretic, but there's always money in the banana stand is apparently a quote from Arrested Development. Probably don't use that one. Because that'll probably be in somebody's word list somewhere.
Normally, a long list of random words is secure, but not if it's a popular saying.
Yeah. There's actually, if anybody here has ever seen the show Mr. Robot, you gotta finish it. It's wonderful.
I've watched the whole thing, yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say it's very dark, but There is an episode where they're trying to crack somebody's password, and the narrator points out, he's like, yeah, the feds couldn't do it, nobody could do it, but we could do it because we know him. And so they loaded up, what was it, Wu-Tang Clan? A dictionary list of Wu-Tang Clan lyrics and cracked it like sitting in their car in like 30 seconds. But that's because they knew him and they knew like, yeah, it's probably gonna be Wu-Tang. So, but yeah.
That also emphasizes that actually you're usually going to get hacked by something dumb and social engineering-y. Like, that's the real truth.
If y'all are podcast people, there's a great podcast called Darknet Diaries.
Oh yeah, my wife loves that one.
It's so good. He interviews usually cyber criminals, but sometimes they're like ethical hackers. And yeah, it's really interesting to hear these people talk about like what got them caught or what turned them in. So yeah, it's usually like one little thing. And then just to kind of drive the point home, I went into my password manager and generated a 16-character, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, etc. So real quick, we should mention passphrases. This is an eternal debate. Passwords, passphrases, which one's better? A lot of people say passphrases are better. Passphrases are, I believe I have this in the notes. Yeah, they're, I'll go ahead and skip to the next one, if it'll let me. Beep. It's just a collection of random words. So instead of, again, using a popular phrase or song lyrics, EFF has what they call diceware. All the password managers I'm going to recommend, you can just click a button and it'll switch to passphrase instead of password. Pretty straightforward, but it's not a phrase, it's just random words. You know, I can't even think of random words off the top of my head, I'm not even going to try. So, my personal opinion, I like passphrases for passwords that you have to actually remember, like logging into your computer, logging into your password manager, logging into your backup drive, things like that. Otherwise, I'm a big fan of passwords because, again, most sites are going to say, hey, it has to have a random number, all that crap. Yeah, that's kind of all I got on that one. And then a good passphrase should be 5 or more random words.
The key is random here. Do not just think of random words, because your brain's not as random as you think it is. Use an actual random word list.
So that was, I can tell that was BitWord because it has the hyphens. That was telling BitWord to give me a 5-word passphrase. So dainty, zookeeper, hangout, trader, cyclist. Type those in, and that's your login to your computer or whatever. And believe it or not, like, you'd be amazed how quickly your brain can start remembering things, because I know, at least for me, I know a lot of us have come to rely on like saving your login on your computer or saving it in your phone and things like that, but when I started randomly generating passwords and pins and all these kind of things, like even the pin for my debit card is randomly generated, because I don't want to use like birth date or something like that, and every time I'm like, man, I don't know how I'm going to remember this. I usually have it memorized in like a couple days. It's pretty wild how much your brain. I just remembered I didn't write this down, but for the record, one of the common pieces of advice you'll hear is never write down your password. Generally speaking, it's considered okay to do that as long as you keep it in a safe place. So for example, if I change the passphrase for my computer, I will write it down, and I will put it in my wallet. So number one, if it's lost, I know it's lost. Number two, I don't write PC password or something like that on it. It's just the passphrase, so anybody who picks this up is going to be like, cool, what was that guy on? And then on top of it, once I memorize it, I go ahead and shred the paper. So, yeah. Or you can stick it in a safe deposit box for significant others or whatever.
I have to ask a very tinfoil hatty question. You see certain people on the internet raise this one, so I just want to get your thought on it.
Sure.
Some people are flagging that the danger of, say, writing it down is that essentially that now that public spaces are increasingly blanketed in cameras, hackable cameras with recognition software of things, that somebody could see your password via one of these cameras, essentially. I know it's very tinfoil hatty, not technically impossible.
I was going to say, changing your password or typing it in?
I think both. I've heard people propose tinfoil hatty.
I was going to say, don't change your password at the airport.
Yeah, well I don't know. I've heard people get very tinfoil hatty about like that they must not be anything physical for them to see.
I think that is actually a valid concern. That we did see a couple weeks ago, about a month ago I think at this point, the Wall Street Journal reported on an attack where, only with iPhones interestingly, people will start chatting up with you in a public place like a bar or something, and they're trying to get you to unlock your phone. So they'll be like, you know, after hitting it off for a while, they'll be like, hey, let me add you on Facebook. Like, here, let me see your phone. I'll just find myself, right? And as soon as they have your phone, they'll just take off, because now if they saw you put in your PIN, now they know how to get into your iCloud account, apply for an Apple Card, charge up, use Apple Pay, all that kind of stuff. Can't do that with a fingerprint. Can't do that with Face ID, things like that. So there's definitely a time and a place. I think there are some times where, and again, it kind of goes how tinfoil hat do you want to get? Because
And what
Apple and
is your
Google,
threat model? Exactly.
exactly. Apple and Google both claim, for example, that your biometrics never leave the device. So, do you trust them? I'm not going to tell you to trust them. I'm not going to tell you not to trust them. I have my own opinions. But I definitely think there's times where it's like, okay, what's the bigger threat? That Google might have a hash of my fingerprint, or that somebody's going to steal my phone? Yes, sir.
You can't claim the fifth on your biometrics.
And that is, again, threat model. That's a good point, because yes, it is.
That's one of many reasons the EFF Austin tends not to recommend biometrics.
Right. If you're going to be engaging in like protesting, for example, last time I checked, legally the cops or even the law cannot compel you to turn over your password, but they can tell you to unlock the device with like a biometric fingerprint, for example. Or unethical police have been known to just like flash your phone at your face and unlock it without a warrant.
Yeah, and
So-
to get really nerdy lawyerly here, the specific thing going on with the Fifth Amendment is the police cannot compel what is known as testimonial evidence from you for self-incrimination. So they can't make you testify, i.e. speak a password. But your body and its inherent characteristics, your face, your fingerprint, you're not testifying to anything. So your self-incrimination rights under the Fifth Amendment are not being violated under this theory.
Yeah.
So you wanna hybrid. Password
Again, it depends on your threat model. If you're, generally speaking, if you're not a very politically active person, you don't really go to protests, you're not a journalist or anything like that, it's probably okay to use your fingerprint in conjunction with a strong password or PIN. If you do, like, live in a place where somebody might swipe your phone or you might get arrested for something, then yeah, I personally wouldn't rely on. We're actually about to travel internationally here soon, and thank you for reminding me that I should turn off the fingerprint on my phone.
And I guess I'll also just flag that another reason I tend to personally not recommend biometrics is because it violates the rule Nate pointed out of don't reuse your password, because your fingerprint is your password. As soon as it's compromised, you can't get a new fingerprint.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's another common argument against it is, if my password gets caught up in a data breach, I can just change the password. If my fingerprint, which at this time, I don't know of a way that would happen, because they basically turn your fingerprint into a digital hash, and I don't even begin to know how you would reverse unhash a fingerprint.
Well, particularly there has to be some fault tolerance because it's not going
Right.
to hash the same every time because it's going to get scanned
Right.
and recognized differently every time.
True.
Not an expert on how they do it.
I don't know either, to be honest. But either way, yeah, that's a valid point. If your fingerprint were to somehow get leaked, can't change your fingerprint. Random collection of knowledge bouncing around in my brain. If you burn off your fingerprints, they grow back. So, I don't know where I learned that. Don't ask. I don't know. So, that brings us to the question. If my thing will work.
Died.
I think it might be dead.
All right.
That's
time
cool.
to advance
Yep.
manually.
Advance. Remembering all that craziness. Because that is impossible for a human to remember, which is kind of the point. If you can remember your passwords, generally speaking, they're not good passwords. So my top two recommendations are BitWord and KeyPass. I wrote XC with an asterisk. So KeyPass is, without going too far into the weeds, it's more of a protocol rather than an actual app. Kind of like, phone calls, SMS. It's a protocol. You can use multiple apps to do that. KeyPass XE will work on all desktop environments, Windows, Mac, and Linux. For mobile, you're going to need to find a different one. I think Strongbox is the top recommendation for iOS, and KeyPass DX is the top recommendation for Android.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the KeyPass XC has an official Android recommendation.
I think it's DX.
Although I use KeyPass, I've yet to go down the rabbit hole of actually running it on my phone. I usually just manually input them when I need it.
What if you're across multiple platforms like iOS, Android, and Windows?
So that's my big recommendation there. I think BitWord is going to be right for most people. Let me see my, yeah, I'll get to that. So BitWord, the big difference between the two, in my opinion, BitWord is cloud-based, KeyPass is not. So if you want something that's just going to sync between all devices and it's going to be effortless and you're not going to have to think about it, BitWord, definitely. If you want something where you don't trust the cloud, or
Like me.
which is fair, then KeyPass would be my recommendation. Yes,
You can self-host BitWord.
you can.
Yeah.
Yes, Bitwarden can be self-hosted.
That being said, for intro, self-hosting is probably not for people who, and people are like, haven't used a password manager, may not have graduated to self-hosting yet.
Yeah. Although I've heard, for the record, I have not looked into it. Apparently there's, I believe it's a fork of Bitwarden called Vault Warden that I keep hearing people recommend if you're going to self-host it. So, yeah.
But yes, device syncing is important. If you're like me, where you don't mind entering a few commonly used ones manually on your phone, not a big issue. But yes, the cloud syncing is annoying, but I will also say, if you've heard anything about the comically horrendous LastPass breaches,
Oh, I was about to get to that, don't worry.
there's a reason to not trust the cloud.
So, yes.
I still can't get my company to ditch it, so.
Same here, man. Same here. Anyways, it's okay. We're still changing our password every 3 months, so they'll get there in 10 years.
Yeah, they do have 2FA, MFA enabled, so at least they're not totally gonna get cloned.
Arguably. So, yeah, what was I going to say? Yeah, so going back to the Bitwarden and KeyPass thing, the big challenge with KeyPass is that you're going to have to synchronize it manually. So, again, yeah, if you want something that just synchronizes, I'll tell you what I do is I use KeyPass for literally everything, and then I use Bitwarden either for things that I need to enter on my phone or I need to share with my wife. So that's what I do. I use both. But if it's things that I don't need to share or don't need on my phone, like I don't use banking apps. My bank login is on KeyPass on my desktop. It's also worth noting, if you're going to go the KeyPass route, make sure you keep really good backups. Do not lose your vault. It sucks. The same could also be said of Bitwarden, that don't forget your master password, because they cannot recover it for you if you forgot it.
And
I know a friend that's happened to
to
her.
LastPass's credit, I can tell you from experience, they also cannot recover your master password if you do not have it.
That's okay. Hit up somebody on Telegram. I'm sure they can.
I know, I'm sure they can. Sure.
For those of you who are not aware of the crap talking, so December 22nd, 23rd, 2022, LastPass, which is a popular password manager, announced that they had suffered a data breach. And the date is relevant because that was the Friday before Christmas break, which is the classic sign of we are trying to sweep this under the rug and hope no one notices. They downplayed it by trying to tell people, this gets into iterations, which is a whole other thing, but basically they weren't upgrading the back-end account security for their users. So there were some users who were using security measures from, 10 years ago?
I don't remember.
I think, or something like that.
It
500 iterations, if
kept
anybody knows about
getting worse
iterations.
and worse what they've done.
It
So,
does. It literally got worse and worse. And then we come to find out that vast portions of the vault were not even encrypted, like the website. So, because for those who don't know, password managers, they offer, you can save the username, the password, and the login website, which is helpful for phishing resistance. And they weren't encrypting, they were encrypting the username and the password, and I think the notes, maybe? Or something like that. But they weren't encrypting the website, which makes it incredibly easy for an attacker to go in and be like, oh look, this email account, because that's your login with LastPass, this email account has an account on Amazon. So now I know that I can fake an Amazon thing, send them an email and be like, hey, there's a problem with your package, go ahead and log in. Cool. And could also be used to blackmail people if they have accounts on sketchy websites, or I should say websites that may not be acceptable to the mainstream. So yeah, avoid LastPass like the plague. And then again, they just kept trying to sweep it under the rug. It just got worse with every passing day. Special mention, OnePassword. They are not open source. Bitwarden and KeyPass are both open source, which means that anybody who knows how to read code can go online, look at the code, make sure it's doing what it claims it does. And that is not an automatic guarantee of security, but with projects as big as Bitwarden and KeyPass, there's usually a lot of eyes looking at these projects. So things like not encrypting the entire vault would be noticed earlier, and somebody would call them out on it.
Or things like the password manager itself is stealing your passwords get noticed.
Did they do that? Was that somebody else?
I'm just saying,
Oh,
that's
okay.
the problem with closed source in general.
Yeah, you don't know what it's
trust
doing. Yeah, exactly. OnePassword is closed source, but I've heard nothing but good things about them from security experts. Surprisingly, for being a proprietary company, they do support the open source community a lot. They do a lot of open source friendly things. I think they fund a lot of open source projects, but yeah, they're a good choice too if you already have an account with them. They're pretty good. I put maybe someday Dashlane because at the time I was building these slides, Dashlane had just open sourced their web clients, but their privacy policy is not that great right now. So maybe someday. We'll see. It's too early to tell. And then I just kind of made a quick getting started. So step one, can't really see back there, but I have both KeyPass and KeyPass is down here, BitWord is up here. You go to the website, is it gonna work yet? Nah. I don't know why the laser's working, but this guy's not. Step two, download it. And then again, I have the sites there. Did restarting work? No. Oh well. Step three is to create your vault. I should have taken a screenshot of it, but I said store any recovery keys. BitWord, when you make your account, they'll give you a recovery key. It's kind of like a passphrase. And just store that somewhere safe because if you forget your password, that's the only way they can recover it. And then step four, import your passwords. There's actually, BitWord has the best documentation on this, but all of these password managers offer a way, if you, for example, have saved all of your logins in your browser, they offer instructions for hey, here's how to go download it and import it into your password manager. And then step five, start using better passwords. So, yes sir?
Say you have to convert a large quantity of passwords that you've recycled. This is something that the Apple will tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Passwords that are in public domain, so to speak. So you want to go through and start regenerating a new password for the sites, or for the ones that you want to protect.
So unfortunately, let me start by saying BitWord does offer a service. It's paid. So BitWord, both of these, KeyPass and BitWord are both free, but OnePassword is not, but I think it's really cheap. I think it's $1 a month or something. BitWord and probably LastPass do offer a premium feature. BitWord Premium is $10 a year, so dirt cheap. They do offer a premium feature where they ping the Have I Been Pwned API and see if your passwords are in any known data breaches, and they will alert you. As far as changing it, I have yet to find any tools that allow you to very quickly and easily change passwords.
Like in the keychain app on an iPhone, it will identify all the ones that it knows.
Yeah, and again, BitWord and Premium will do that too.
And then, okay, well, I want to change something.
Unfortunately, the only way I know of right now is to just go in, log in, and change it, in the actual website. So I wish there was a really easy way you could just mass change passwords. I've seen people float that idea before. The big issue right now is that everybody's really inconsistent about how to do that, and there's no easy way to easily just ping the website and one-click change it. That would be cool. Yes?
I just wanted to say the way I've done it that kind of makes it less daunting. I originally started using a password manager because every time I wanted to log into a website or an account, I would think, okay, I need to transfer this to my BitWord and I would make a new password then and there and add it to my BitWord, and that way I'm not having to sit down and do it all at once. So just kind of makes it less daunting if, as you are using websites in your daily life, you go, oh yeah, I need to change this password and add it to my password.
I think that's wonderful advice, because it definitely, when you sit down and realize I probably have at least 100 to 200 logins over the last 20, 25 years, it can be daunting to get started to do this correctly. But
and I think it's really important to also prioritize and just first address the credentials that you need that are most important to your health and well-being, right? And then some of the random websites that you signed up for a newsletter for, that can be done later. But I think prioritizing when making changes like that is super important.
I think that's also good advice. My advice to people, and Nate is always going to disagree in any place, but my personal advice is, the most important accounts to secure, well, the very, very, very most important ones, if you are going to only do this with one, do it with all your email accounts, because your email frequently serves as a single sign-in authenticator, so if your email gets compromised, you are just completely hosed and pwned. So email's most important. I'd say probably tied for second after email is major social media accounts and major financial accounts, banking, investments, etc. A little below that is probably things like anything related to very sensitive personal data, like health insurance, etc. Anything related to your job is going to be pretty high up as well, etc. Yeah.
Hi. What do you make, or what can you tell us about what I've seen recently with trying to re-authenticate with Google, and Google sending me over to YouTube to authenticate? Have anybody else seen this?
I have not.
I get on my phone with the YouTube app.
Yeah, they use it for notifications.
They use it for notifications.
I've not seen that yet, so I can't really have an opinion.
I got a new laptop, so I can re-log into all my Google, well, my 3 Google accounts. And it was like, check YouTube on your phone, and the little alert pops up, and it's like the weirdest.
Oh, that's, okay, I know what you're talking about. So that is Google's effort at two-factor authentication.
Yeah. Sure.
If you have other forms of two-factor setup, you should be able to use those instead if you prefer. But otherwise, it defaults to
But who
those.
knew- I guess what prompted the question is like, who would think that like my YouTube password would be like a critical, point of failure in my
I mean, yeah,
model?
yeah. I mean, it is something like that. I mean, I guess I would say that goes under the umbrella of anything with a major web service via Google, Meta, whatever. They are the people who are being targeted for these mass data breaches. So any accounts you have with them are big targets. And then I guess I'll also say though, while random websites are less important, you also shouldn't forget them. Here's the rule of, is a random account matter or not? If it is like a random account you made to something that has no personal information of any kind, and that password doesn't get you into anything important, doesn't really matter. The place where a random website can actually start to compromise you is if that random website has your email address listed once you get into the account, because then they can start brute forcing against your email address.
Took me forever to pull it up, but yeah. On my website, I recommend stop what you're doing immediately and adopt secure passwords for your most critical accounts. Bank, email, and other accounts you can't afford to live without. For the rest of your accounts, I recommend updating passwords to something secure as you go. So next time you log into eBay, change your password. Next time you order pizza, change that password. Because I definitely sat down in one day and changed all my passwords in one sitting. There's not a lot of people I would wish that on. It was pretty brutal.
What about changing passwords across, I use a lot of browsers, and they'll have their own password managements.
Those are generally not recommended to use.
Well, it just happens.
I mean, Chrome and Firefox have inbuilt secure password generators, which I suppose better than nothing, but I tend not to use.
It is better than nothing. I don't recommend using them because there has been an increase in malware that can steal your browser data, including your
I would like
passwords.
to just harvest it all, feed it into OnePassword manager,
They can do that.
and, all right.
Oh yeah,
So-
actually, your browser has a section where you can see every saved cache password it currently knows about, actually.
Yeah, you can export that and import it into BitWord.
I can type, I promise. Been doing it since I was 11.
No require.
So yeah, like I said, here, they give you how to import from LastPass, I like how that's right at the top. OnePassword, Firefox, Chrome, Chromium-based engines, Brave, Opera, Vivaldi, whatever, Edge, Password Safe. There's no Safari. Weird.
No WebKit love.
Yeah. But yeah, so BitWord has detailed instructions on how to do that. And honestly, the instructions apply pretty much the same to KeyPass as well. Because, to import your data, well, where's the export part? Here we go. Select tool, no. Oh, this is the import part. Well, yeah, you gotta export first, that makes sense.
And I mean, one thing I'll throw that's a little bit of an additional detail when you're dealing with KeyPass, which I have more experience with, it's a non-cloud-based solution, so what that one involves is you're actually going to download an actual app or program to your desktop. They have clients for Windows, Mac, and Linux. I'm on Linux. And then what you'll also need to do is you'll need to download like a browser plugin. They have ones for Chrome and Firefox that are the official browser plugin. But you'll get that, and then you'll need to basically sync the desktop app with the plugin. They have guides.
Or you can just copy and paste like I do and, make your life harder.
Oh, well, all right, so here's the thing. You can copy and paste and then have the browser cache. This is for if you want a little browser add-on that will automatically read your vault. You click a button, it'll populate it for you.
Yeah. And I mentioned earlier...
Bluetooth?
I'm sorry?
Use Bluetooth for synchronizing between your devices.
That's entirely up to you. You can use any cloud service like, for KeyPass, you can use any cloud service like Dropbox, Nextcloud, whatever. Or if you want, you can plug your phone in and sync them up manually, but that's entirely up to you. I was going to say, I mentioned earlier that saving the website helps protect you from phishing attacks. That goes hand in hand with the browser plugin, or extension, excuse me. It's technically not a plugin, it's an extension.
Yes.
Somebody got on my case about that once. So the reason that is because if you have the extension, which I don't have, well, I have Snowflake there. When you go to log in, if it's not the actual website, it will not prompt you to log in, which should be your first red flag. If you use the extension and you click on a link or whatever, and that doesn't pop up with like, hey, do you want to log in? That should be your first, like, wait a minute, let me
It
take a
means
closer
it doesn't
look.
recognize the URL, something.
Which could be as simple as they changed their login URL or something, but it could also be an indication of an attempted phishing attack. So, yeah. And that was actually all I had. I don't know if I can will it just take off from there. No, it wants me to go through the whole thing again.
So I guess what I will say is, first thing, we can see if people have specific questions for Nate, and then once we've addressed those, if somebody would actually like help with their laptop or phone setting some of this stuff, we can then move to that.
Yes.
So, does anybody got questions for Nate before we move to any hands-on assistance?
I have a planning. I'm looking to change platforms from Mac to Windows.
Okay.
And migrate from iCloud, what's in the phone, the various browsers, on laptop end. Of all the password managers you discussed, which one is robust enough to deal with going from one platform to another across a lot of different applications and browsers?
Probably BitWord.
All right.
Because again, it's all, they have their own cloud, so it's all synced up there. As long as you remember your master password, you can log in from anywhere.
And if you're going to use the cloud, at least use an open source cloud like it, because at least it can be audited for the glaring security holes LastPass was guilty of.
I could be wrong, but I think they do actually pay for annual audits. I think they just finished one from Cure 53, who is a very well-renowned security company that does a lot of audits. So, all right.
Another cool thing that BitWord has is like this built-in service, and I started using it through a Firefox relay service. But it generates based off of like using or tying one single email address to an account, a ton of separate accounts or email addresses for all your different accounts that you sign in.
Oh, it'll automate plus whatever the service is. So yeah.
To the point where so with Mozilla, like it's to the point where you know how like a little icon shows up in the password box and say like fill in your password. It'll say like a little plug-in icon to just fill in some random email for you.
So this works in conjunction with an email masking service, which is or email aliasing, excuse me, which is a completely different topic, but a good topic. I'm surprised more people aren't interested in these. So these are two of the services I recommend, which are Simple Login and Non-Addy. I'm sorry, Simple Login's logo doesn't play very well in the dark theme. What these do is these allow you to generate alias email addresses that forward to your inbox. But unlike, so there's a really common trick where you can add plus whatever to the end of your email. So if you're a Gmail user, I could add Nate plus Amazon at gmail.com. And I would still get the email. But then once Amazon sells my email or gets caught in a data breach and I start getting spam, I can know where it's coming from and do absolutely nothing else about it. The nice thing about these services is you can delete aliases. You can turn or temporarily turn them off. You can do whatever you want. You can change where they forward to.
You can literally kill an alias if it does get pwned, and then you won't get any more email from it.
Honestly, I do it because I'm just too lazy to click unsubscribe. I'm not even kidding. I'm just, at this point, I'm too lazy to hit unsubscribe. I just log in and turn it off. Problem solved. And I still see it on my dashboard. You know, this probably sent you an email 5 hours ago. Cool, don't care. Yeah, so I mean, they do work with, I'm not sure about Simple Login actually, I'm pretty sure they do. But I know a Non-Addy definitely does. They work with BitWord. It's not super hard to set up, but yeah, you have to, and they walk you through how to do it on their website. You have to pull an API key, import it into BitWord, and then when you go to sign up for a new website, it'll offer to right there on the spot, like, hey, do you want to generate a new email address? So you don't even have to log into a Non-Addy or Simple Login, it'll just do it on the spot.
And you know, since we're already addressing a related tangential topic, I suppose that, you know, we would be remiss if we were having a discussion about strong passwords to not also say that any website that supports it, you want to enable two-factor authentication as well, though very important, not SMS two-factor authentication.
If you
That
can
is
avoid it.
not- If some services only let you use texting two-factor, it's better than nothing if that's all they support. But if they support both, do not use SMS. It's a horribly old, insecure protocol that can be hacked very easily. Use an app for your two-factor. The ones I would recommend are Duo or Authy. There's also Google Authenticator, but you gotta trust Google for that.
I'm gonna send you a video about Authy.
Yeah. Is Authy no good no more?
They don't let you export the seeds, so you can't take your codes and go somewhere else.
Oh, fine.
Yeah. They also, do you remember the Twilio data breach that occurred last year?
Vaguely.
So there's a company called Twilio who's basically provides virtual phone numbers. A lot of companies use them, like Twitter probably uses Twilio for sending these SMS two-factor codes. Twilio got breached, and through the Twilio breach, several other companies got breached, and Authy was one of them. But for the record, there were only like 6 accounts. So we think it was a really targeted, like it was a nation state looking for someone.
Right.
We can't say that for certainty because nobody has taken credit or definitively attributed it to anybody. But that's kind of the suspicion right now, is like, that's kind of really weird you would breach this multinational billion-dollar corporation with millions or thousands of clients all over the world and only target 6 accounts. That's kind of weird, but
Yeah, it is, ain't it?
those are the ones I recommend.
I haven't even heard of these ones.
Dude, Aegis is great. You need to check out Aegis. It does automatic backup.
Oh, nice.
BitWord and KeyPass and probably OnePassword can also store two-factor, but if you're going to go that route, you need to make sure you're definitely using a very strong master password. I would even argue to use a hardware security token, such as a YubiKey, some of you may have heard of, but because at that point you're putting all your eggs in one basket, so you need to secure that as much as humanly possible. I'll put this thing on light mode. I feel like that's kind of hard to read.
Oh, and I guess one other question I have for you that may not be something you researched a ton, but I feel I'd be remiss in not mentioning it, that occasionally I will come across news stories that are talking about like Google and Microsoft researchers attempting to kill the password with passwordless login.
Passkeys.
And I even see certain websites starting to push this as more secure, like the Home Depot website wants you to use passwordless login.
Wow.
And
Home Depot's
so,
on that.
and so, what are your thoughts on these people claim, like, as my tinfoil hat immediately goes, it might be secure, but you're going to spy on me and steal all my data. But, I mean, I don't know much about these proposed research solutions. You may know more about these passwordless solutions than I do.
So the one I'm most familiar with is known as passkeys. Truthfully, I don't know as much about them as I'd like to. They are, I know it's an open standard, kind of like TOTP here. Which means that in theory, anybody can integrate it because it's open source. I know BitWord wants to, but I don't know if they have yet. I think Google has rolled out support for passkeys already on Android. If not, I'm like 99% sure iOS has, but I could be wrong. My big question is if they're going to be adopted. Because you can come up with the best technology in the world, but if nobody's going to use it, then it doesn't do you any good. That said, every expert I'm hearing is saying they are actually a massive improvement. My personal big concern is they seem to be linked to a mobile device, which I feel, my questions there then become, how do you transfer it from device to device? Which for the record, there may be answers to this and I just don't know. But my question becomes, how do you transfer it? Like when I buy a new phone, how do I transfer my passkeys? Can I transfer them from Google to iOS? Because that's usually not a smooth process.
And is it truly anonymous, or is it somehow tied to my consumer identity?
I'm going to assume that they can be anonymous, because again, it's an open standard, and I feel like if they weren't, somebody would have raised the flag. I feel like BitWord wouldn't be trying to adopt them if they weren't.
Yeah.
Although, for the record, I don't know, maybe you can implement it in a way where it's
I mean,
not as anonymous.
As I said, like, there were just things about it that raised my, suspicions, but I didn't have anything definitive. And as you said, certain experts seem to say, oh, this is great, so I don't know.
There's a podcast I really enjoy called Firewalls Don't Stop Dragons. Fantastic book, by the way. He, about a month ago, maybe 2, he interviewed someone from BitWord who talked about passkeys.
Yeah.
I recommend checking that out.
Okay, and he actually sounded mildly positive, I gather, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool. As I said, maybe I'm just now the old fogey who's like, passwords were good enough for me, But as I just said, when I see stuff like Google saying you don't need passwords, I'm like suspicious because it's Google.
No, that's fair. Like I said, my big concern center around how do you change them from devices. What happens if you don't have a mobile phone? You know, that's a barrier to entry for people who live in poverty.
Exactly.
Or it gets stolen.
Yeah, exactly. What if it gets stolen? How do I make sure other people don't get into it? I'm assuming two-factor is not going away.
I mean,
hope,
it's one of those things where it might be worth it for the higher base level of security and convenience for the average person, but then here I'm going, but I'm still giving
But I
out
have
some
my
security.
25-character
I
password.
know, I already knew it this way.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm in the boat where I'm kind of just waiting to see how it shakes out, to be totally honest.
Yep.
All right.
We got any more questions for Nate, or do we have anybody who desperately wants to take advantage of the actual assistance part?
Question.
I kind of stepped out when you started talking about password managers. I've used
Sure.
OnePassword for a long time.
You said OnePassword?
OnePassword.
OnePassword's
I
good.
also use BitWord a little bit, but I think maybe one reason you might be recommending BitWord is that they maintain their own cloud, I heard.
Their open source is the primary reason. I have heard nothing but spectacular things about OnePassword from
Yeah.
security experts I trust, so I think they are a good choice. Bitwarden is free. I think my mouth. Maybe I turned it off. Yeah, I turned it off. I'm fidgeting. Bitwarden is free financially because I know OnePassword doesn't have a free tier. You have to pay for it. I know it's not much, but still, Bitwarden is free and open source. But yeah, OnePassword is also a great option. If you're on OnePassword, that's good.
maintains its own cloud.
I don't think so, actually.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you're talking about self-hosting.
Oh, so.
Yeah, Bitwarden, because it is open source, they allow you to self-host it yourself if you want. I think they actually have instructions on their website.
Okay.
So, I've never tried it. I've heard it's a little bit more difficult than it should be, but
I'll stick with OnePassword.
I mean, I
it's
only
probably good for most people.
I only recently figured out self-hosting WordPress, so that's about as far as I've gotten on self-hosting journeys.
I self-host Nextcloud because I hate myself.
You gotta also kind of think about like the fact that at OnePassword there are going to be multiple people who their entire career and like day job is with the objective of securing your passwords, and you might not have the time to make sure that you're configuring BitWarden in exactly the correct way to like access it from outside of the house, or even like defend it from other things inside your house.
Yeah, that's definitely a concern with anything you self-host. I see that. God, that's one of my big pet peeves. I see people all the time asking about encrypted email providers, and there's always, put your paycheck on it, there's always that one person that's like, just self-host your own email. Putting aside the fact that that is extremely difficult to do in the first place, there's so many ways you could screw it up, and now like on the lower end of the things, like on the lower end of things going horribly wrong, there's your emails just won't get received because you didn't configure it correctly and now everybody thinks it's spam. Or on the higher end, you didn't do the security right and now anybody who was it? I'm an encyclopedia of data breaches up here. We had one last week. Oh God, they're a financial company. I can't remember the name, but they're a financial company, which is wonderful. They had a misconfigured Azure database, Microsoft Azure, which is hosting. All you had to know was the IP address and you could access all their documents.
The IP address.
The IP address of the database. There was no authentication either.
Oh.
So if you had the IP address of the Azure instance.
I can literally just hop on dbeaver and be like, what do we have here?
Right? Shodan's a wonderful tool. But yeah, so definitely I understand concerns with the cloud, but I think for a lot of people, unless you're willing to like do your research and make sure it's secure. Like I said, I host my own Nextcloud. I still don't put anything sensitive on there. Just in case
I would
screw it
really
up.
kind of endorse that recommendation. Either don't use the cloud and deal with manual USB syncing, or use a cloud provider. Security is really, really hard. Never roll your own security. It's similar to like, it's one thing to learn how to self-host WordPress, but if that's actually going to be a sensitive site you don't want hacked, you probably don't want to self-host it.
It's like building your own car.
Well, because also you got to remember that if you don't configure your ports correctly and you have on your home network this server you're sending your website out, and somebody gets in, congratulations, they just compromised your whole home network.
Yep. So, all right. Yes, sir.
Do you have any advice for or against using password managers that run into web apps without cookies? They're not cookie-based web apps. They're just.
Are you talking stateless password managers?
Well, I mean, I guess they.
Where there's no vault, you just every
Vault.
time you tell it the information and it tells you the password on that
Yeah,
on the
like
spot.
every time you open up the page, like for a brand new, I guess, application session.
Okay.
And it's tough to describe it as a session because sessions usually persist across reloads.
Mhm.
But this wouldn't. Like basically JavaScript memory session. If you basically ask to enter in the master password and then you run it from there. Is having anything in the web browser bad? Would the web browser like cache any of that JavaScript global state?
I think that depends on who you ask.
Hash passwords in the browser and have it remember for you, basically, I think is the question.
Or you're talking about basically saying log in every time through the browser.
I'm not talking about using the browser's built-in password manager. I'm talking about
But you're talking about logging in every time from the browser instead of like using an app or something like that.
Well, I mean using a password manager that runs as a web page.
Like using
Alongside your other sites that you would copy from that password manager into the logins of every other tab that you log into.
Oh.
I think that depends who you ask. My famous response is depends on your threat model.
Like, because KeyPass is a desktop app, and
Right, but like
is that
BitWord,
available
for example,
for
you could
Android and
access.
iOS,
It is.
or-
You would have to use, well, there's different options, but the most recommended one for, I keep turning that off, for Android is KeyPass DX, and the most recommended one for iOS is Strongbox. But there's a couple other options too. Those are just the most popular ones I see. But you're talking about how like BitWord, like right now I could go to BitWord's website, log in, and I don't have to download the app. I think there's pros and cons. I mean, the pros would be, for example, if you have a high threat model, the app is not on your device. There's no data whatsoever on your device, assuming you clear your browser cache when you're done. The drawback is, I guess also if you're a targeted individual, you're loading JavaScript, and if we want to really get into it, JavaScript is a little bit risky for security. How much of a risk that is really depends, I guess, but yeah.
Well, I mean, you could go to the extreme. Once they implement it, you can go to iframe integrity, right?
I'm not familiar with that one, no. I'd have to look into that.
Oh, well.
My technical knowledge is relatively low compared to a lot of people. Especially the circles I run in where people are like, you know, they can read the code and they're just like, oh yeah, this cryptography is implemented like crap. I'm like, I know what AES stands for.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
you know, I'm a full set web developer.
So you might know
I'm
more
not an
about this.
InfoSec person, so I can only tell you how some of this security stuff works at a very high level. I remember one time I tried to read a paper about leaking a password from a cryptography standard that Moxie Marlinspike wrote, and I was reading it going, I am just smart enough to barely understand this, but it never would have occurred to me. Never.
So that's how I am. I read a lot of these blog posts from security researchers. I'm like, this is cool. Now what does that mean in English? So,
ChatGPT.
yeah, right. I would if they didn't demand a SIM card phone number. I'm not giving them my SIM number. I'm serious. I'm not giving my name to a computer.
Well, my favorite thing is people typing in proprietary code in ChatGPT, and now it's getting leaked onto the internet. I'm like, yeah,
from,
that's going to be the Achilles heel that leads to this
Somebody
not
just
getting
got
widely
fired for that.
adopted.
Somebody
I
from
heard
Slack.
Samsung leaks were happening like that. Samsung's having.
Maybe it was Samsung I was thinking about. Somebody just got fired because they got caught doing that.
People were like,
I
API keys.
don't give it the company source code.
What's that?
I don't give ChatGPT the company source code.
Or at least give it open source things. And it's like, yeah, whatever. This is a Google search away.
Amazon
Who cares?
literally had to put out a company-wide email basically telling employees, no, you are not allowed to ask GPT to how do I
To
improve
review
my
your
proprietary code? Are you stupid? It's just like, yeah, because, you know, it was now showing up in its training data. OpenAI now had all this proprietary shit it knew.
Because it took it all from GitHub.
Yeah.
All right.
And I guess now, the final question is, since I did advertise help for anyone who wanted to get started, is there anybody who's here specifically because they are intimidated about actually doing all this and would like needs help?
Not here now.
It's fine if the answer is no. And
You
it's
can
also-
email me later. I
It's
got
also
2
fine if
email
the
addresses
answer
right
is
there.
just not right now, but you'd like to be put in touch with Nate so he can help you.
Yeah, I got 2 email addresses right there. I check them both at least once a day. So,
What's the, I don't know, Proton, what's the other one?
Tunanoda? They are an encrypted email provider out of Germany.
Okay.
Proton Mail's out of Switzerland, Tudanoa's out of Germany.
They're kind of the 2 big names in encrypted email right now.
And EFF recommends both. I believe I was told an informal straw poll at EFF, about 2/3 of their staffers use Proton Mail, 1/3 uses Tutanoa. So they recommend both if you want secure encrypted email provider.
All right.
I like Tutanota staff. They're really cool.
Yeah, I recently got Proton Mail, but I'm still slowly converting my workflow over to it.
I will say
There's
Proton
just-
has the prettier UI. So if having a nice modern UI is important to you, Proton's probably the one you're going to want to go with. But Tutanota has some good things too.
I have nothing bad to say about either that I've heard yet.
They used to be protonmail.com, right?
Yeah, so they
changed-
rebranded, well, not rebranded, but they changed to proton.me. If you have an account with Proton Mail, like at protonmail.com, it'll still work. Apparently, part of the rebrand had to do with getting YubiKey support. So, not sure what went on there, but my YubiKey now works with Proton Mail, so I'm not complaining. We've only been asking for that for like 6 years.
I also only wonder if like maybe it had something to do with that there were certain single sign-on providers that were starting to block Proton Mail email addresses as
Really?
only hackers use Proton Mail. So
I've
I
heard that
wonder
about
if they-
Tutanota,
wonder if
but I
they
haven't heard that about
changed it
Proton.
to get around it. I don't know.
I had to change all my all my protonmail.com emails and my password manager to proton.me.
Hmm.
Shouldn't have had
Do
to.
you have a bunch of Proton mails?
Maybe.
And see, this is, okay, first of all, make sure they're not free because they will delete your accounts if they find out that they're all free. You're not supposed to have a free account just to get around the ban, or just to get around the limitation. Or gamble, whatever. Secondly, or second, yeah, I'm just warning you. If they find out you're doing that, they will delete your accounts.
Why does one have more than one Proton Mail account?
Probably so they don't have people taking advantage of the free plan and trying to have, because you can pay and get multiple Proton Mail email addresses.
Wait, not everyone does this?
Hey man, do that at your own risk.
I will also add the free tier has certain perks that appeal to people that the free tier of the VPN still lets you pretend you're in Japan. So all the anime weebs can get their free anime subs.
Or I was going to say, alternately, simple login and a non-addy, get them all forwarded to your inbox. It's like $30 a year for the most expensive plan, I think.
Isn't this what like Apple Private Relay does?
It's similar.
But it's Apple.
But it's not Apple.
People don't.
But it's Apple, and I can send you to some very fun
Or
security.
no, Apple has Hide My Email. Private Relay is their Tor knockoff.
I could also
That goes
send
to
you to
Cloudflare.
some very fun blog posts demonstrating that any claims Apple is giving you about privacy are total bullshit.
Oh, would that be the one about how there's the toggle that says don't track me and they track you anyways?
Yeah, that's one of them. There's the other one about
That's my favorite.
There's the other one about how even if you disable all cloud services, it still like snitches to the cloud on everything you do on your desktop. And it's not blockable except at the router level.
Fun.
The OS just won't obey you. It's like you don't own it or something.
But they're doing it for your own benefit.
Right? For the record, Google does crappy
A little
things too.
different than you.
Oh, in fairness, yes, Google is just as bad. It's just Apple had the goal to sell themselves as privacy friendly. Google at least never did that.
On all devices, you turn on airplane mode, and the minute you turn it back on, it tells exactly where you've been.
Oh yeah, it just catches.
It also sends a note that you're going into airplane mode, so they know you just set your phone in airplane mode. Just, tip for those who are trying to anonymize your phones. It knows you went into airplane mode.
It's similar to like private browsing mode. That is for, let's be honest, for watching porn. That is not for actual private browsing.
But does it snitch when you have your phone off? Is there power going to the GPS unit?
So,
Newer ones.
if you want to be technical, yes. When your phone is off, definitely with Apple phones, possibly with newer Androids, that remains to be seen. It is still on because the Find My network is enabled unless you go in and turn it off. What is it sending? Arguably, just your location to the Find My network. Again, that depends on how deep you want to go down the rabbit hole, which I'm a paranoid person. I'm not throwing any shade there. But on paper, all we can prove is that if you have Find My phone turned on, it does send your location in case you need to track it. If it's turned off, it shouldn't be sending anything. But again, that goes back to how much you trust Apple.
Maybe we should change the name of these things to telescreens.
Also,
It's 1984, right?
At the beginning of the
Good
talk,
book.
I alluded to various bad things the Texas Ledge is up to. One thing I will tell you they are up to is they are one of many states that is, I don't know if this bill actually, what its prospects of passing are, but I can tell you they're one of many states that is trying to do one of these bullshit age verification laws.
Oh, yeah, I saw
where
that.
You must confirm your age, ostensibly with preventing kids going to porn sites, but it's basically going to make it where you have to provide government ID to log into all sorts of websites, basically.
Arkansas is trying to implement for all social media. Louisiana has passed, I think, porn verification.
Utah definitely passed one.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's another one. Utah and I think Louisiana. I know Louisiana was thinking about it.
I mean, yes, of course, there's ways to circumvent, but this is horrific privacy disasters. You definitely should contact the ledge and tell them, no.
Counterpoint, I kind of want to see what happens when their ID gets leaked tied to all the porn they watch.
Well, of course, because the fun fact is many of the identity verification services are owned by the porn companies. So whether or not you go to a porn website, the porn website will have your information.
I didn't know that, but that doesn't.
Oh no,
surprise
they
me.
are. Trust me. Look up. It's
That
fun.
doesn't surprise me. All right.
Who owns the porn websites?
You don't want to know that.
It's the point of incognito mode.
Anybody got any final questions for Nate here? It's fine if not, and as I said, you're welcome to get in touch with me or him if you would like. I can help some as well on this stuff, and EFF Austin is happy to help you if you're like, I'm stuck on this part, or this is kind of scary, so we're happy to help, so do reach out. Well,
Cool.
Thank you so much, Nate.
Thank you for having me.
Seriously, this website is quite awesome. You should check it out. I find its guides are a nice supplement for when EFF's surveillance self-defense guide does not have me covered, because he goes into many things they don't.
Hey, I stole your EFF self.
Do I need to turn JavaScript off before visiting the site?
It's JavaScript free, and my web developers were not happy about that requirement. But they volunteered, so that was their fault.
Even the backend doesn't have JavaScript?
What do you mean the back end?
No Java. Or is it all static, sir?
Oh, I built it with Astro. But other than that, it's hosted on Namecheap, cPanel. So,
Good old Linux.
yeah, when you visit, there's no JavaScript. I was very happy about that.
So,
It doesn't need JavaScript. It doesn't do anything.
yeah, so I would take it from that as well, no track, no logs.
Wait, so you don't need to spy on your users?
I know it's weird, right? I actually
No,
delete
it's
the logs every month.
almost like websites don't have to do that, actually.
I delete the logs every month too. Super weird.
But how will you know what IP address is?
Yeah, how will you know what content?
I don't want to know. That's the whole point.
Yeah, he doesn't need to know what you sick freaks get up to in your spare time.
Exactly.
But you can't A/B test.
My A/B test is I put it out there, and if I get a lot of angry emails, I know it didn't work. Trust me, people are not shy about sharing their opinions on the internet.
Yeah, no, that's never a problem.
All right.
All right, well, thank you everybody for coming. I guess I'll just find anybody who wants to stick around and talk. We usually go over to the lobby bar and have a drink. You're all welcome to join us. So, yeah, and also, anybody who parked in the garage, gotta be out before roughly 10 or your validation will not work, and it is expensive. You don't want that to happen.
There's a lot of free parking.
There is free street parking as well, so, but yes, anybody who did park in the garage, the validation's good till 10, which is an hour and a half from now, but if you're drinking and having fun, you can lose track of time.
Where do we get validated?
They go to the desk.
Person at the front desk.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, we're gonna probably
Cool.
go to the bar in a minute here. Anybody wants to join us, welcome. And anybody who can't make it but has any questions for me about EFF Austin, getting involved, volunteering, that sort of stuff, happy to answer it before you gotta go. Thank you all for coming. Yeah, every time I'm sure this is finally the month nobody comes, they all trickle in.
It's all good.
So,
What's up?
question, because I wrote my own password.
I think I
Oh,
remember
interesting.
you there.
Which one?
I called it Passman.js in 2019, and
Nice to see
I
you.
just
What's your name again?
I managed to build it in 40 hours, and lately it's
I'm
taken
glad we got you.
much more than 40 hours to upgrade it to be much more maintainable. But
That's fair. That's pretty
But it
cool.
was
I feel
secure.
like I may have heard of that one, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I might have. I don't know. I've heard of a lot of different ones.
It's
all good.
it also supports it's two MFAs.
Why is
So
it?
it's got-
That's important, Jesse.
Yeah.
Alright.
Like to log in or in the vault?
Well, like it supports them. So
Like in the vault? Oh, okay, cool.
so like
That's awesome.
Well, we're happy
If I
you
search
come out. We hope we'll keep seeing
MFA.
you, definitely.
for some of these, I set the type to MFA key, and if I click that little copy
I
thing,
see.
it copies the 6-digit code right then and there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like it when password managers do that. It's like my wife has started using that feature with BitWord, and it's like I said, it's an increased risk. You got to make sure you're locking down your account real tight, but it's so convenient, it's so easy.
Well,
Like I'm in a band, and so sharing band accounts with people, like now we can turn on two-factor and stuff.
Yeah. So I haven't added password sharing support yet.
I'm sure that's a
requires
challenge.
a fair bit of a cryptography, because
Yeah.
I have to switch
Yeah,
over to
securely
more
sharing passwords is a
public
whole
key,
nother ballgame.
public key cryptography, because right now I'm just using a derived symmetric key.
Okay.
So there's like two, so your master password gets turned into two keys. One one's the authentication key, it sends it off to the server. The other one's the encryption key, it doesn't leave the front end after.
Gotcha. Oh, okay.
And, they're derived using PBKDF2 with 100,000 iterations.
Nice.
I may need to up the number of
I was gonna say for the
iterations.
record, OWASP just dumped that to 6,000
Yeah.
or 600,000.
Yeah, I may need to up that, but it's a tiny password manager.
I mean, it's still something.
It's a tiny target.
Dude, it's better than last.
Way better than, yeah. Well, no, it might actually not be as good as Passphrase.
Yeah, I was just gonna say my own name.
I mean,
Bitcoin broke the security of PBKDS2 shop. No, because Bitcoin provides a monetary incentive for people to figure out how to compute SHA-256 very quickly.
Gotcha.
So,